Weatherfield has never looked so dangerous. A wedding day in ruins, a body found in an alleyway, a police investigation closing in on not one but two members of the same family and two detectives who thought they had it all figured out, only to be blindsided by a piece of evidence that changes everything. If you thought Coronation Street had already given you its biggest twist of the year, think again, because the walls are now caving in around Sarah Platt, Gary Windass, and the two officers trying to hold the whole case together, DS Lisa Swain and DC Kit Green. Stick around, because this is one of those Corrie stories where every single scene rewrites what you thought you knew, and today we are breaking down exactly how we got here, what the new evidence actually means, and where this earthquake of a storyline goes next. Right now, the biggest conversation happening across every Coronation Street fan page, every soap forum, and every corner of social media is the sudden, dramatic collapse of the cover-up surrounding Theo Silverton's death. For months, viewers watched a mystery unfold in the background of everyday cobble's life, a whodunit that Corrie bosses promised would ripple out and touch almost every corner of the street. That promise has now been delivered in spectacular fashion. In the most recent episodes, the net has finally closed on Sarah Platt, who has been arrested on suspicion of Theo's murder, live on screen, in front of her own family, during what was supposed to be a joyful moment. And it does not stop there. Her ex-partner Gary Windass has also been dragged into the investigation, with Lisa Swain telling Kit Green directly that police believe Gary was involved too. For a show that built this mystery slowly and carefully over many weeks, watching it detonate all at once has left fans absolutely reeling, and the reason this particular chapter has become such a huge talking point is simple. Nobody expected the evidence to point where it is pointed, and nobody expected Kit Green, one of the investigating officers, to be personally and professionally compromised by what has been uncovered. If you are newer to Coronation Street or you have not been able to keep up with every single episode, do not worry. We're going to walk through exactly who these characters are, how this murder mystery began, what the new evidence actually shows, and why this is being called one of the most emotionally loaded storylines the soap has tackled in years. Let's start with the two officers at the very center of this storm, because understanding who they are makes everything that follows hit so much harder. DS Lisa Swain has been one of Coronation Street's most prominent police characters for the past few years, portrayed by Vicky Myers. Lisa is no stranger to personal tragedy bleeding into her professional life. Longtime viewers will remember that her own wife, Becky, was also a police officer who died in the line of duty after being struck by a car, a loss that sent Lisa on her own quiet, dogged pursuit of justice, one that eventually uncovered evidence linking local troublemakers to the tragedy. That history matters here because Lisa is a detective who understands intimately what it feels like when the people closest to you might be hiding something devastating, and she brings that same relentless instinct to every single case that lands on her desk, including this one. Standing beside her, and often causing just as much drama as he solves, is DC Kit Green, the son of cafe owner Bernie Winter. Kit has had an incredibly turbulent journey on the cobbles. Earlier this year, he was at the center of his own explosive storyline when he took brutal, unofficial revenge on a man who had murdered his colleague, all while Lisa agreed to keep his secret buried. That single decision, Lisa choosing loyalty over procedure, cracked open a moral gray area between the pair that has never fully closed since. Kit has also weathered the return of his son Brody, uncomfortable confrontations with dangerous stalkers threatening his mother, and now find himself once again standing far too close to a crime for comfort, this time because of his connection to Sarah Platt, someone he has grown protective of, and someone who is now facing a murder charge. Together, Lisa and Kit have functioned as Weatherfield's go-to police duo. The pair viewers turn to whenever chaos breaks out on the street, whether that is a suspicious death, a dangerous stalker, or a domestic abuse case that needed exposing. But this new murder investigation is testing their partnership like nothing before it, because for the first time, the evidence is not just pointing at a stranger or a one-off villain. It is pointing at people Kit personally cares about, and that puts his professional integrity on a collision course with his loyalty. To understand why this murder case carries so much emotional weight, you need to understand the man at the center of it, Theo Silverton. Theo arrived in Weatherfield as a self-employed scaffolder and quickly became entangled with Todd Grimshaw, eventually marrying him. On the surface, Theo appeared devoted, even charming at times, but underneath that exterior was a deeply controlling and dangerous man. Theo had a history of self-harm and violence in his previous relationships, and once he and Todd were together, that darkness resurfaced in horrifying ways. He isolated Todd from his friends and family, subjected him to escalating emotional and physical abuse, and manipulated nearly everyone around him to maintain the illusion that everything was fine. Then came the moment that many fans still consider one of the most shocking of the year, the Corrie crossover event, when the worlds of Coronation Street and Emmerdale collided during a horrific minibus crash. Billy Mayhew, the beloved vicar and one of Todd's closest friends, was trapped inside the burning vehicle. Theo had the chance to save him. Instead, in a moment of jealousy and cruelty, he clipped Billy's seatbelt back into place and left him to die as the fuel caught fire. It was a stomach-turning act that fans did not immediately know about, and Theo spent weeks afterward hiding his guilt while quietly unraveling, even confessing his crime out loud to Billy's coffin during the funeral preparations, unaware that someone may have overheard him. As the months rolled on, Theo's abuse of Todd only intensified. He beat him, isolated him further, and threatened to whisk him away to Belfast to cut him off from anyone who might help him. It took immense courage from Todd to finally report Theo to the police, arriving at the station bloodied and traumatized to tell Lisa Swain and Kit Green everything. Around the same time, suspicions about Billy's death began circling closer to Theo as well, with Sarah Platt and others starting to piece together that the crash and the minibus tragedy were not quite as accidental as they seemed. All of that context matters enormously, because when Theo was found dead outside the flat he had shared with Todd, almost the entire street had a motive. He had terrorized his husband, indirectly caused the death of a much-loved local figure, and left a trail of anger, fear, and heartbreak behind him. That is exactly the kind of everyone is a suspect setup that Coronation Street producer Kate Brooks had teased months in advance, describing the storyline as one of the most intricate and community-spanning mysteries of her time on the show, one where practically every character group would be touched by the fallout in some way. When Theo's body was discovered, Corrie deliberately kept viewers in the dark about the specifics. There was no confirmed cause of death shown on screen initially, and no clear weapon revealed, a storytelling choice designed purely to keep fans guessing and speculating for weeks. Was he pushed from scaffolding near the flat? Was he attacked in the alleyway, where his body was eventually found? The show fed viewers just enough ambiguity to fuel endless fan theories without giving the game away too early. As the weeks passed, however, the truth began to surface in devastating fragments. It was eventually revealed that Sarah Platt had struck Theo with a scaffolding pole, killing him after he taunted her cruelly about the death of her own son and Todd's close friend, Billy. For Sarah, a mother who had already endured unimaginable grief, Theo's cruelty in that moment appears to have been the spark that pushed her over the edge, transforming her from someone trying to protect Todd into someone capable of taking a life in a moment of raw, uncontrolled fury. But Sarah has never been the only person tangled up in this mystery, and that is exactly what has made the investigation so complicated for Lisa and Kit. Long before Theo's death, Sarah had already shown she was willing to bend the rules to protect people she loves. Viewers will remember she once tried to plant evidence, a hair bauble belonging to missing teenager Lauren Bolton, in the van of a man she believed was responsible, an attempt that Kit himself had to physically intervene to stop. That history of Sarah taking matters into her own hands gave the investigation an unsettling sense of déjà vu, as though everyone somehow knew she might be capable of extreme action if pushed far enough. Then there is Gary Windass, Sarah's on-off partner and the father of her children, a man with his own long and complicated history of violence lurking beneath a seemingly steady exterior. As suspicion mounted, Gary found himself dragged into the investigation as well, with police officially bringing him in for questioning over Theo's attack and, later, his death. For Sarah, watching Gary face potential consequences for a crime she alone committed became an unbearable weight, setting up one of the most gut-wrenching moral dilemmas the show has run in recent memory. Does she let the man she loves take the fall, or does she come forward and shatter her own family in the process? This is where the story reaches its explosive peak, the moment fans have been building toward for weeks. In the most recent run of episodes, Coronation Street delivered a gut punch of a twist. While the Platt family gathered together for something as innocent and heartfelt as filming a birthday video message for their beloved matriarch Audrey, police officers arrived and arrested Sarah on suspicion of Theo's murder, right there in the middle of the family celebration. It is the kind of gut-wrenching, mundane moment shattered by catastrophe scene that soap operas do better than almost any other genre, and it landed exactly as intended, turning what should have been a warm family memory into a nightmare that will define the Platts for months to come. What makes this arrest so significant is not just the timing but what it reveals about the strength of the evidence against her. According to the investigation, multiple threads had been quietly tightening around Sarah for some time. Forensic teams had taken away the outfit she wore on her wedding day for testing, a detail that had been weighing on her mind and fueling her panic in the days leading up to her arrest. Meanwhile, Kit had been circling the case from his own angle, growing increasingly suspicious that Gary was about to be arrested, and doing everything he could to warn Sarah and keep her steady, all without realizing just how close the investigation was to zeroing in on her instead. And then comes the detail that has truly stunned both Lisa and Kit personally. The case is not just closing around Sarah, it is closing around Kit's own conduct too. Lisa does not simply confirm to Kit that Sarah is now the prime suspect. She tells him bluntly that investigators believe he was involved in some capacity as well, immediately turning what had been Kit's quiet, protective concern for Sarah into a genuine professional liability that could threaten his entire career on the force. For a character who has already flirted with the line between justice and personal loyalty once before this year, when he took the law into his own hands against his colleague's killer, this is a stunning and almost poetic collision course. Kit is now facing the very same kind of scrutiny he once benefited from when Lisa chose to protect him. Adding another gut-wrenching layer to the fallout, Sarah reportedly makes a shocking revelation of her own once she is in custody, telling a visibly shaken Lisa the truth about killing Theo, while also disclosing that it was actually Jody who attacked her at one point during this turbulent stretch of the story, a detail that leaves Kit reeling all over again. It is a cascade of confessions and revelations landing one after another, each one changing the shape of the investigation and raising the emotional stakes for everyone connected to it. The fallout does not stop with the Platts and Kit either. Sarah's sister Maria is left devastated trying to process what Gary's potential involvement means for her own family, while the wider Platt and Barlow clan reels from the news that a woman they all thought they knew so well has been keeping something this dark hidden in plain sight. Meanwhile, in a piece of bittersweet timing that only a soap opera could deliver, Shona and David are dealing with the joyful news that their daughter Harper is finally being discharged from hospital, a moment of happiness that is immediately overshadowed the second word of Sarah's arrest reaches them. Even Nick, Toya, and Leanne find themselves caught in the emotional crossfire, discovering that young Sam is also due to be released from hospital around the very same time as Aunt Sarah is being charged with murder, a piece of news Nick worries could seriously affect him. It is safe to say this storyline has taken over conversation among Coronation Street's fanbase. Soap news outlets have been dedicating entire weekly rundowns to tracking every twist, describing this stretch of episodes as one of producer Kate Brooks' most ambitious and far-reaching stories yet, precisely because of how many character groups it touches. Fans online have been dissecting every clue that was planted earlier in the year, going back through old episodes to spot the moments where Sarah's desperation and Gary's volatility were quietly being set up long before anyone realized where the story was truly headed. There is also a significant amount of discussion around the emotional complexity of Sarah as a character in this storyline. Many viewers have been vocal about the fact that Theo was, by any measure, a genuinely horrific villain, an abuser who left a friend to die in a fire and tormented his husband for months. That has led to a wave of fans expressing real sympathy for Sarah even as they condemn the act itself, debating online whether her actions were an unforgivable crime or an explosive, understandable snap after prolonged exposure to Theo's cruelty and the raw grief of losing her son Billy. It is exactly the kind of morally gray storytelling that keeps soap audiences engaged for weeks on end, because there is no easy, comfortable answer for anyone watching. Kit and Lisa's dynamic has also become a major point of fan conversation. Longtime viewers have pointed out the irony that Lisa, who once looked the other way to protect Kit after his own vigilante act earlier this year, now finds herself potentially having to treat him as a suspect in an entirely different case. Some fans have speculated online about whether this could be the beginning of a serious rift between the two detectives, while others believe the shared history between them might actually be what saves Kit's career if Lisa chooses loyalty over procedure once again. Either way, their partnership, once one of the more stable relationships on the cobbles, now feels like it is standing on very shaky ground. So, where does all of this leave everyone once the dust settles? For Sarah Platt, played by Tina O'Brien, this storyline is shaping up to be one of the most significant and dramatic arcs of her decades-long time on the show. A murder charge is not something Coronation Street hands out lightly, and it strongly suggests months of courtroom drama, prison scenes, and fractured family relationships lie ahead. Whether Sarah eventually faces the full consequences of her actions, strikes some kind of plea deal, or finds an unexpected way out of this mess entirely remains to be seen, but there is no doubt her family, particularly her children and her sister Maria, will be dealing with the emotional wreckage of this for a long time to come. For Gary Windass, the question of just how deeply he is entangled in this case is still hanging heavily in the air. Has he genuinely escaped the investigation unscathed, or is there more evidence waiting to surface that could implicate him further, whether in Theo's death itself or in helping Sarah cover it up afterward? Given Gary's history of violence and his tendency to take matters into his own hands, as seen when he confronted Theo directly and threatened him after learning the truth about his abuse of Todd, fans are right to remain suspicious that his story is not fully told yet. Then there is Kit Green, whose entire career now hangs in the balance. If investigators genuinely believe he compromised the case by protecting Sarah, or by failing to report his suspicions quickly enough, this could mark the beginning of the end of his time on the force, or at the very least, a serious professional reckoning. Given how much of Kit's character arc this year has revolved around blurring the line between doing what is right and doing what protects the people he loves, this feels like the storyline the show has been building toward all along, forcing him to finally face consequences for choosing loyalty over the law. And we cannot forget Lisa Swain, the one constant, steady presence trying to hold this entire investigation together. Watching her navigate a case that implicates both a woman she has grown to respect and a colleague she has personally protected in the past puts her integrity to the ultimate test. If Kit truly is compromised, will Lisa cover for him again, repeating the same choice that got them into this murky territory in the first place? Or will this be the moment she finally draws a hard line, even if it costs her a working relationship she has come to rely on? As always with a story this layered, fan theories are already running wild. Some viewers believe Jodi's involvement, the revelation that she was behind an earlier attack on Sarah, is far from a footnote and could open up an entirely new thread of consequences, possibly even more charges or a fresh confrontation between the two women. Others are convinced that Gary will ultimately be cleared of direct involvement in Theo's death but could still face separate charges related to obstruction or helping conceal evidence after the fact, given his closeness to Sarah throughout the ordeal. There is also plenty of chatter about whether Todd Grimshaw, the man who suffered so terribly at Theo's hands, will ever learn the full truth about who killed his abusive husband and how he might react upon finding out it was someone so close to his own support network. Meanwhile, speculation continues to swirl around exactly how severe the consequences will be for Kit. Will Lisa be forced to report him formally, triggering an internal investigation of her own? Could this be the storyline that finally sees Kit removed from the police force altogether, opening the door for a completely different chapter in his relationship with his mother Bernie and the rest of the Cafe family? Nothing has been confirmed, but the pieces are certainly being laid for a fallout that could reshape both characters for the long term. To sum up where things currently stand, Coronation Street has delivered an absolutely seismic development in its long-running murder mystery surrounding Theo Silverton's death. Sarah Platt has been arrested on suspicion of murder after new evidence, including forensic testing on her wedding outfit, tighten the case against her, and she has since confessed the truth to a stunned Lisa Swain, while also revealing Jodi's role in a separate attack against her. Gary Windass remains entangled in the investigation, leaving his family reeling over what his involvement might mean, and DC Kit Green now finds himself facing the very real possibility that his own career is on the line, after Lisa reveals that police suspect he was involved in trying to protect Sarah. It is a storyline built on grief, abuse, loyalty, and desperation, and it is only getting started, with plenty of fallout still to come for the Platts, the Windasses, and the two detectives caught in the middle of it all. This is exactly the kind of unpredictable, emotionally charged storytelling that keeps Coronation Street at the center of soap opera conversation week after week, and honestly, it is hard to imagine where the show goes from here without shaking up several more lives along the way. So that is everything we know so far about this jaw-dropping Coronation Street murder evidence bombshell. What do you think is really going to happen to Sarah, Gary, and Kit? Do you think Lisa will protect Kit again, or is his time on the force finally over? Let us know your predictions and your honest reactions down in the comments below. We absolutely love reading them. If you enjoyed this breakdown, give the video a like. It really helps the channel out, and make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another Coronation Street update the moment it breaks. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.